This is The Clash, where the real world clashes with a true Christian worldview. Join former professional wrestler Chris Whaley, known as the Masked Saint, who is an author, pastor, and teacher that brings his wrestling skills into the squared circle and tackles real-life issues. Along with Jeff Dixon, best-selling author, internationally known teacher, leader, and pastor who is not afraid to tackle the tough issues of the world we live in. Together they form a tag team of wisdom in The Clash.
Welcome to The Clash. My name is Jeff Dixon. I'm joined by
Chris Whaley.
And together we are taking a look at how a Christian worldview clashes and collides with the culture around us. And this is a special episode. And so if you're one of our normal viewers, welcome back. If you've never seen us before, we're glad that you're here. But this is a special event, and it is called The Trump Files. That must mean that it is political season.
It must mean that we're going to do something that's going to make somebody mad that's listening.
Yeah, I mean, and here's our promise to you. Yeah, we're going to make somebody mad. And that's our promise. That's all we can offer. But this is one of two specials that we at The Clash are producing. So this is the Trump Files. If you like it, great. Then you're going to hate the next episode we do, which would be the Harris Files.
Right.
And if you're looking forward to the Harris Files, then you're going to have to endure the Trump Files to get to it. So one way or the other, we feel like we will be equal opportunity offenders.
Yeah.
So prepare to be offended. So are you excited about this election season?
I believe, Jeff, that this is the most important election in my lifetime. I really do.
come?
Well, I just believe the stake of our nation is, it's at stake here. We know what Trump did for 4 years. I mean, we have that. We know what Biden and Harris have done for almost 4 years. And there's a big difference in both of them. And I don't think there would be a problem coming to a decision if people voted for Trump based upon his positions. But sadly, there's a large portion of people who vote against him based on his personality. Yeah. Would you agree with that?
I do. And that's funny, though, because if you think about it, prior to him being a politician, his background was one as a builder and entertainer, wildly popular, guest appearances in movies and TV shows. Everyone wanted to interview this guy. Both sides of the political aisle loved this guy. They loved to take his money.
Right.
Right up until the moment that he got into the political arena and descended that escalator in Trump Tower and announced to the world that he was going to run for president. And people laughed. They thought, this is crazy. It's just a publicity stunt.
Right.
And all of a sudden, he ends up being president of the United States. I think it's very, very odd because, again, this is a guy who's been on both sides of the fence and had seen wild popularity and then just hatred.
And I have never seen a political candidate more persecuted than Donald Trump. And I have to ask the question, why is that? I mean, they have tried to hurt him financially with lawsuits, tried to keep him off the ballot in some states. They've tried to, they haven't tried. They've lied about his record. The media no longer reports the news and let us decide. They have an agenda to make sure that the Democrats get elected. I mean, if that offends you, I'm sorry, but where have you been? I mean, they're very, very, very biased. And then, tried to kill him with an assassination attempt. By the way, there is so much stuff that is completely crazy about how all of this has been handled since the assassination attempt. I mean, even with, having the body cremated, real quickly after that, and I mean, his family has some real high-powered attorneys from Pittsburgh and just a lot of the crazy stuff. But why, Jeff? Why are they trying to keep this guy from being elected? Why are they trying so hard?
I got a theory on that, Chris.
Okay,
I know
let's
that
hear it.
surprised you. I got a theory,
All
right?
right. Hey, listen, I want to hear it.
I think it goes back really to his initial term as president. I agree with you. I think the United States is a crossroad. If you look at the big history of the entire world, the U.S. is really just it's still a new nation, and there's a lot that's going on. But we live in a world where, as Christians, we understand we move closer to end times all the time, and we try to figure out how America fits into all that. And I think Trump's arrival on the political scene was a moment where God, and you don't have to like this, by the way, but God decided to use someone from outside the political machine to be a disruptor. He disrupted the Republican Party. He disrupted the Democratic Party.
Oh, boy.
He exposed, well, of course, he calls it the swamp, but I mean, he exposed a lot of that dirty dealing and all of that stuff that goes on behind the scenes in Washington. He really did, for the first time in my lifetime, come in as a political outsider.
Right.
No one that I can ever remember has done it like that before. And as a result, he is a threat to anybody who used to have a power seat or a seat of influence, because Trump was so unpredictable and uncontrollable and didn't need their approval or their help. Now, had Trump been beat in that first election and had just disappeared into the woodwork, nothing changes. But he didn't. And he stunned the world, stunned everybody by becoming president. And so as a result, here we are again, where this disruptor is still in the mix and is continuing to reshape American politics, the way that we view the media, the way that religious circles view politics now. And to the point where it is kind of called out and exposing the good versus the evil, the two different worldviews that people seem to have. And so his role of anything else on the world stage is that God has used him as a disruptor in American culture. And that can be good or that can be bad, depending upon where you land and how you choose to process it. But I really see that as his role as much as anything else. And I think that's one of the reasons that he is just so hated, and there seems to be no middle of the road with Donald J. Trump.
Yeah. And I know what his spiritual gift is.
What is it?
Brutal honesty. And people hate that. They hate that.
The man does not have a thought that doesn't come out of his head, right? I mean, he'll say it, and you can almost see it coming. You almost can see it coming. And you think to yourself, he ought not to say that. But then when he does, you have that moment where you say, boy, that was funny, and I'm glad somebody finally said that. And it's not always nice to get all that. I mean, there's a whole lot of things that he could do better. But
yeah, people say, oh, he says mean things. He does this. And I was in professional wrestling for 10 years. He's pretty lame compared to some of the things that I've heard. But I know they are absolutely terrified about him getting back into office. And I'm going to be up front with you, Jeff. I want to be up front with the audience. I'm very biased in this episode.
Okay.
I know that's shocking.
I'm stunned.
I know you're stunned. Because I believe Kamala is a snarling wolf that is addressing sheep, and she has a big sign up, and it says, when I'm elected, I'll be a vegetarian.
Wow. And
I don't know how people can be so naive about that, but I'm very pro-Trump, and it'll show in this, show about the Trump files, and my bias against Harris will show in that one.
Let's pause for a minute, let that sink in for just a minute. If you're listening out there and you're watching and you think, okay, well, I'm not going to like this episode at all, don't go anywhere. We just get started here. I mean, it only goes downhill from here. I would venture to say if you weren't wearing that cowboy hat, you'd be having the conductor's hat on. You are conducting the Trump train, aren't you?
Well, I'm just, I'm pretty adamant about it. I really am.
Well, you can hear that Trump train in the distance. And so what we're going to do, let's tell everybody how it's going to work before we
Okay.
go to break. We'll give you time to catch your breath in this special because we know this is a lot for you to handle. But we're going to take 7 different areas um, that are really part of the political platform, part of what people are interested in, part of what Christians are interested in when it comes to voting.
Right.
And for Donald Trump, we're going to open up the files a little bit and just kind of take a quick look at how he stands on each of these. Again, in fairness, when we get to the Harris files, we're going to do the same thing and take an honest look at Kamala Harris and her views and what she says about each one of these things. So we're going to kind of build this idea around seven key things that we have kind of pulled out that we think are important.
Okay.
And then when it's all said and done,
Hey.
we're not going to tell you how to vote.
No.
We care how you vote, but we don't care how you vote. You can do whatever you want to do because you're not accountable to us. You're accountable to God.
Well, Jeff, there is one thing that we need to say is that when we go into the voting booth, who do we take in the voting booth with us?
Ooh, now you're going to say Jesus, aren't you?
I am.
Okay.
I am. I mean, he's got to be a big factor in who we pull the lever for.
Sure.
Does it hold to our biblical values? And I know some people say, well, that's shocking. Trump, biblical values. Well, he's not running for pastor. You know, he's running for president who's going to lead our nation. Do we want a strong ruler that can sit down with, Putin and the world leaders and NATO and not be intimidated by them? The Islamic terrorist and all of that. We want somebody who's strong-backed, to deal with that. Or do we want somebody that can't do an interview without notes?
Sure. Well, I am sure by now somebody watching this is having the vapors.
I'm sure.
And so
I can feel the vapors.
You can feel them from here?
I can.
So here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come back. We're going to start breaking down and open up the Trump files and see what we can do.
And I can't wait.
Okay. Well, we'll be right back. Hey there, stop whatever you're doing right now. Get your phone out and go ahead and aim it right here at the screen at the QR code right in front of you. Because I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, hey, I'm having such a great time watching The Clash, but there's been some episodes that I've missed. Well, if you take a picture of that QR code and follow it to the website, you're going to discover all the episodes of The Clash that you might have missed on a channel called The Church at 434 in Motion. 434 in Motion has that and a lot of other resources, and we would love for you to catch back up on what you've missed. Every day there's brand new programming that comes out, and we want you to be a part of it. Now, hey, relax, it doesn't cost you a dime. It costs you a little bit of time, but it's well worth it because it's time well spent. Actually, it's almost like you're making money at it. So use the QR code, come find us, see the episodes of The Clash that you missed, and let's get back to the show. Welcome back. We're getting ready to open up the Trump files. You're back with us, so you didn't run away or go hide or cut to something else during the break. So we're glad. Welcome back. This is a special episode. We're looking at Donald J. Trump, and we're going to talk about 7 specific areas that are of interest to people who call themselves Christians as they think about this election cycle, particularly with President Trump. Chris, first one, what about Donald Trump when it comes to the sanctity of life?
Well, I believe that abortion is the taking of innocent life. I mean, I can't make it any more blunt than that. And I believe it is absolutely wrong. And, you hear all of this stuff on a woman having control of her body. How about the little innocent body that is inside that woman? Who speaks for that little innocent life? And I believe as pastors, Jeff, if we don't do all that we can possibly do to stand up for the innocent, I think God's going to hold us accountable. I don't think there's any excuse for it today because from what I understand, I could be wrong, but I think birth control is now free. I think it is.
It is.
So there's no reason for this to happen. And, Trump promised when he was before he got into office, he made the promise that he would appoint conservative judges And he fulfilled that promise with Gorsuch and Kavanaugh and with the lady, what's her name?
Mm-hmm.
That's good. Okay. Well, you can't remember either. But anyway, Trump is out of office, and that Supreme Court that now has those 3 judges in there overturned Roe versus Wade after 50 years.
Sure.
And, what happened? Exactly what Trump said should happen. It turned it back to the states. The states make that decision. And I know he believes the same way Reagan. He believes there's 3 exceptions: rape, incest, and the life of the mother.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Jeff, all of those, rape, incest, and the life of the mother, equal about less than 1% of all abortions. I don't want abortions, but less than 1% is a lot better than all the abortions that are going on. So I give him an A rating on this one. What about you?
Well, it is interesting because, again, indeed, he is it Amy Coney Barrett? Is that her name?
Amy Coney Barrett. That's it.
I see. I didn't want to show off there.
And you were out there saying they'll never get it.
I nailed it in the middle of the conversation. Yeah. I just didn't want to interrupt. But when Roe v. Wade was overturned, the world kind of exploded.
Oh boy.
And all that did, as you laid it out, is it pushed it back to the state level. Right. And so currently in the United States, there are some states that have very restrictive abortion laws, and then some that I would say have very liberal abortion laws. But statistically, what has gone on is it hasn't made a whole lot of difference in the abortion rate in America. In other words, if someone's wanting to have an abortion, they're still able to have it. They're figuring out ways to do it. And it's thrown it back to the state level. And that really is how constitutionally it should have been set up to begin with. And so you have 2 different things. You've got the morality and you've got the constitutionality.
Right.
And the Constitution isn't necessarily a moral document, even though it's built on moral principles. This is one that through the years has I don't want to say slipped through the cracks, but really has kind of moved around the edges of the Constitution. And so in many ways, what Trump did, and we mentioned this really in the kind of the introduction, as a disruptor, as he came back in and he shook back up the rule of law just a little bit and kicked back into what was a real, true constitutional setting, the way that the founders would have intended for this issue to have played out. And so, regardless of where you stand on abortion, and I agree, I am pro-life, and so I agree with you everything you said about pastors and how we have to be those advocates for the unborn, and we have to do all those things. Let me step aside from that for just a minute, and let's just talk about the politics of this and the American rule that's there. Trump gave to America a very precious gift and allowed the country to have the opportunity to function at a level that it was intended to function at. And I don't think he necessarily gets credit for that because what he's accused of is not true at all.
Right.
You've heard, and if you listen a lot during the political season, and I've heard it a couple times, I've heard it through the Democratic National Convention, that Trump wanted a national ban on abortion. Yeah. And that's just a lie.
Yeah.
He has come out and he said he didn't want that. He said that from the very beginning. He never did that. And so that is just a blatant lie. And it's okay, it seems, for our culture just to lie.
Right.
And so that's not true. There's no national ban on abortion coming from the Trump file. I mean, abortion has now moved back to the very place where it needs to be litigated, if you will, if you're going to litigate it.
With the state.
Which is state. And then beyond that, there is a morality of it. And Trump has made the statement that he has evolved in his position. He's explained that journey. And he is pro-life and showed up even to speak at the march in Washington.
Right, the only president to ever do that.
And so, so I think that's huge. I think that's a very big deal. Another piece of the sanctity of life that's interesting, and this has come up just even as we're filming it this week, is Trump's IVF promise.
Right.
Where either the government or the insurance company is going to cover the cost or help cover the cost of in vitro fertilization.
Right.
What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's awesome, and the reason is, and we don't know. Yeah, he now has RFK on his team,
Sure.
and of course he wants to make America healthy again.
Mm-hmm.
And I like a lot of the stuff that he's saying about. I mean, there's got to be when we were in school, Jeff, I never heard of autism.
Yeah.
Never heard of ADHD. I mean, if you didn't do what you're supposed to do, you got your rear end spanked, You had discipline. And now there are so many women who are having babies late in life that are unsuccessful. And I don't know if it's the food that we're eating, the chemicals in our food or whatever, but statistics are showing it's just a lot harder to get pregnant today than it was when, we were having kids. So I think it's a good thing. How about you?
Yeah, I don't know. I may disagree with you on this, but here's why. I think the technology is fantastic. I think that the ability that we have in medical science to do it is super. I think at this point, I may have to get back with you on this, but I think at this point, I have a problem with the taxpayers paying for that because of the incredible cost of that. I mean, and it's not that it doesn't need to be done. It doesn't need that. Maybe insurance companies do need to put this as part of their coverage. But now we're crossing into an area that's a pretty interesting area again. I'm going to go back to the Constitution again. Are we allowed then constitutionally to pick and choose what the government will cover and what they'll pay for? Because see, on the flip side of this, because we talked about abortion issue, right? We've have Christians who have risen up in arms over government-funded abortions.
Right.
So this is kind of the flip side of that, right? So this is government-funded birthing procedures now, and so we find ourselves in real tricky water, I think. And so this is one of those times where I think if we're honest about the Trump files, for me, he's pandering for votes. He is trying to pick up some votes with a position that he didn't have before. And I'm not saying it's not real. I'm not saying it's not genuine. What I'm telling you is I'm not sure I agree with it. Although I know many people who've been through that process, and I hurt for them because it is so stinking expensive.
Yeah.
And the heartbreak and the heartache of families trying to become pregnant and can't. Again, that is just a huge hill to climb. But at the end of the day, do you and I have to pay for that?
All right.
Should we have to pay for that?
Well, he's never shied away when people had questions for him, and I'm absolutely sure in the debate or somewhere along the road, there's going to be someone who's going to ask him and say, you want taxpayers to pay for this, and so he's got to have an answer for it. So I can certainly see your point, but I don't think we can have enough babies. So I'm hoping that there's a mom out there that's been trying that can't afford it.
This is it, huh?
Going to be able to, have the baby they want and all. So we'll have to wait and see how he plans to pay for it.
On behalf of us, you and me, President Trump, if you're watching, I'm sure you are, we would love for you to come on the show.
Absolutely.
And we would love to have that conversation with you. And we'll talk about this and give you a chance to kind of explain what your plan is.
And I have reached out to his campaign to ask if he would be willing to be interviewed.
Have we not heard back yet?
Have not heard back.
I'm
shocked.
Stunned. Surely it is just an oversight. Surely it's an oversight. We'll be here very soon. Anyway, so sanctity of life. I think Trump is perhaps the most pro-life president we've had in a lifetime, and to me, as a follower, that's exciting. And I think it's good.
And Jeff, I'm sure I'll bring this up again on the Harris files, but were you a little bit? I don't know, kind of dumbfounded that at the Democratic convention they were giving out free abortions and free vasectomies?
Well, yes, I was a little dumbfounded. I just thought that's just kind of poor taste, and what a dumb thing to do. But again, it also, though, has a whole lot to do with the difference between what is the Republican platform and the Democratic platform anymore. The Democratic platform, if you take a real close look at it, has gotten away from social programming to issues of morality.
Right.
And instead of trying to take that high road and finding a platform where you could really deal with some issues, they've made everything a moral choice, a right or a wrong, or good and evil, and really, in some ways, has driven a conservative movement that has really been forced because there is no middle of the road. There's no compromise anymore,
Right.
And so by the morals of it has driven them to the Republican Party, which is an interesting strategy. And I think the Democratic National Convention just exemplified that. Well, let's move on. Let's talk about religious freedom.
Okay.
Let's open the Trump files on religious freedom. How does Trump score when it comes to religious freedom in your mind?
Well, I don't know if this is the direction that you want to go in, but it's the one I want to go in, so I'm going to do it. So I
Well,
figured
that's not my direction. Why are we going there?
I want to center on one big thing. We've all seen the stuff that has come about because of the pandemic and how the pandemic was handled. The censoring of information, the mask mandates, social distancing. Zuckerberg came out this week and said that he censored, the stuff
Yeah.
about. He was pushed by the Biden administration to censor. And if there's one group of people that I think the pandemic hurt, was churches. I mean, we dealt with it
Sure.
firsthand. Matter of fact, I don't know what the date was when they said we'll have no more, services. That didn't stop you,
No, it did not.
and I want you to tell people about that because
Well,
I thought that you were very innovative.
Well,
And go ahead, tell them about
well, no, we're recording this in the free state of Florida, and so when that ruling came down, one of the things that we did very quickly is we contacted the governor's office, and got clarification on one were pastors and ministers essential personnel, because remember how that law came down, and we found out that we were considered essential personnel. Now, everyone may not agree with that, but hey, that was nice to hear. But we took the high road and we backed off a little bit, and we actually ceased doing worship services where everybody came. So we went to a live Sunday morning feed where we would bring our worship team band in, and we just basically for a few weeks would just do a live stream, and then we started doing drive-in church in the parking lot, and the whole time we kept checking in with our local municipality and also the state of Florida to find out, were we indeed allowed to have worship services? Clarification, we got it from the governor's office. The question was very specific. Are churches shut down? Are churches allowed to meet?
Right.
Can we do it publicly? Can we advertise we're meeting? Are we allowed to meet? And so I believe that we were officially one of the first churches, if not the first church in Central Florida to reopen. And we did so in a way that was as creative as we could. We added a worship service. We created a lot of space in the worship center. We spread out chairs, realizing that everybody wasn't going to be able to come back, nor did they need to come back. And we made masking, optional, which again was not the norm at the time. But we also were already seeing some of the evidence that masking didn't necessarily work. And so we kind of navigated what were some tricky waters, but we survived it.
I don't know what the statistics are about this, but I just think of how many churches, Jeff, shut down because
And
of
never
the
bounced
pandemic
back.
and never came back. I mean, churches that just disbanded because of the pandemic. And, I know Trump was in on the beginning of this. I thought he did an exceptional job of handling things. I mean, when this thing first broke, he was doing a press conference every day, sharing information, taking questions and all. And I think he did the best he could, because I also believe, and you can debate me on this, but I believe he was sabotaged by people in his own administration, and of course from the Democrats. Biden went crazy with mandates, the vaccine mandates, the mask mandates. So I give Trump an A on how he handled things, and I believe that he is strongly for religious freedom.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think it comes down to, for me as a pastor, I know that some Christians have trouble with, Trump, and they want to make some judgment calls about his lifestyle or morality or whatever. But at the end of the day, we said a minute ago, we said in the opening piece, we take Jesus into the voting booth with us.
Right.
Well, I need a United States president that will give me the freedom to do what I'm called to do and leave me alone.
Right. Just leave us alone.
I don't need him
Yeah.
to be the moral compass or the moral center for what we're doing in church. I don't need him to be a theocratic leader. I don't need him to speak for God for us as a nation. I don't need him to speak for God for me as a follower of Christ. I don't need that. What I need is him to give me the freedom to do what I'm been granted by the Constitution of the United States to do, and to worship and to celebrate who God is and what he's done. And so I don't think, at least again in my lifetime, that there's ever been a bigger defender of religious freedom than Donald Trump. So I mean, I give him high marks on this.
An A?
Reopen the files. I give him an A, sure. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
I mean, because I think he sees the importance. I mean, whether or not he's all in or not, and people want to talk about a spiritual journey, and that's a different conversation. But I think there is a spiritual journey he's been on. I think there's a whole lot of depth to him, at least his background, that people don't really understand.
Right.
And because we reduce most of our life to sound bites and still images anymore. But that's a whole different conversation. But as far as religious freedom goes, I think he did a good job, and so we'll see in the days ahead. But I don't think that's changed if he gets another shot at being number 47. I think it's going to be all right.
Yeah.
And I also think he did a good job legislatively in supporting religious organizations. I think he did not exempt religious organizations from some of the benefits that are available through the government, as some other presidents have done. They kind of took religious organizations and pushed them to the end of the line when it came to assistance or resources that were available. He dealt with religious organizations as a player with a seat at the table.
Right.
And to me, again, as a pastor, that meant a lot. And so I think that becomes important.
I don't know the name of it. I know that is it called the Johnson something other, where you can't say political things from the pulpit. I know that name Johnson is in there something, and I'm just wondering, did he overturn that? Get it overturned while he was in office or not? I don't know, but I just think pastors ought to be able to share from the pulpit about politics. I think they should, because there's a lot of low information people out there that need to know some of these things. So let's go on.
Okay,
I digress. How about family values, Jeff?
I think when you take a look at Trump and the family values that he tried to exemplify, but also would share or make statements about, to me, he seemed to voice his support for policies that aligned with what were traditional Christian views of marriage and family, of nuclear families, but also he did not persecute the family units that did not necessarily fall into those categories. I think he promoted fatherhood and strong manhood among organizations, and I think he was pretty honest about talking about the need for fathers in the home, and why that if they're not in the home, it weakens the family unit, and why that has been part of the struggle along the way. And so I think for values like that, I think that he hit the mark. And I think also, if you go back and look at some of the judicial appointments that he made too, I think his conservative judicial appointments also reflected some of those same family values. And of course, we talked a little bit about that earlier. But I think as he appointed judges along the way, he was looking for some boxes that needed to be checked about some values and some things that he wanted to do with marriage and some other things. And so Yeah, I think he was a strong advocate for family values, understanding, and I think he's smart enough to understand and was open enough to understand that family may look different in a lot of households in a lot of regions of the country, and every family is not the same. But it doesn't mean that you blow up what are the values of family and strong families and what they're supposed to be. And so I think he walked the tightrope on that, but I think he did a good job.
Yeah. Yep. Well, I put in a search engine this. I put Trump and family values.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I was disgusted with what came up because every one of them was from a liberal, slanted, uh, organization that absolutely just was filled with lies. When I looked at it, uh, here's what I see, Jeff. How he treats families that have gone through tragedy. When there's a national tragedy, buddy, he was on it. Um, what other president would do what he did with the 13 service members that were killed in Afghanistan?
Mm.
I mean, he personally got with all 13 families. He has not given up to name those families, and even at the Republican National Convention, those families were recognized. Uh, Look how he treated the families of those people that were affected by the assassination attempt.
Sure.
The firefighter, and then the two other people who were shot and seriously injured. I think he's taken up almost $10 million. I know that doesn't bring back that firefighter.
Sure.
I know it doesn't undo the hurt, but it'll certainly be a big help to those families. And he has certainly kept in touch with those. I've read stuff about people who work for him.
Mm-hmm.
Jeff, I have yet to find one person that worked for him that didn't have a glowing recommendation about what it was like to work for this guy, and how he treated their families. You think of, again, other fallen military families. His work at Walter Reed was just unprecedented. And then I look at his family.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Don Jr., I know he's got some little things there that I'm not too crazy about, but I mean, Eric has a strong family. I mean, Ivanka and her, I know they're Jewish, but they have a strong family. Barron seems to be a grounded young man, and his other daughter. I look and see what happened at a Chick-fil-A. It was unannounced. They just went in this Chick-fil-A in Atlanta, Georgia, and this young black lady said, "Can I give you a hug?" And oh man, he hugged her, and now she'll go and speak at events
Sure.
with him because he put the money in to save the black colleges, and that meant a lot to her. I mean, I give him an A when it comes to family values, because what I see from him fits me a whole lot better than what I see from the other side.
Sure. And I think uh, again, there's nothing wrong with admitting that yes, families look a lot different today.
Mm-hmm.
But just because families look a lot different today does not mean that you kick to the curb what is a traditional family structure unit and hold on to family values.
Right, right.
And so, he kind of steps into what is a world that is kind of seems to be exploding all around him,
Mm-hmm.
and becomes an advocate for family values in a day and age where that wasn't safe anymore for politicians to do.
Right.
And so, if nothing else, as a Christian, I give him great high marks on the fact that he had the guts to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and and again, I mean, having family values doesn't diminish the value of any person.
No. No.
What it does is it strengthens, hopefully, that infrastructure that we have that helps make America strong and vital and,
Right.
and a force of change in the world. I mean, and so to me, uh, I like a lot of what he says. I like a lot of what he's done. I like a lot of what he's modeled.
Right.
And I appreciate the fact that he's not so politically correct that he doesn't say what's on his mind.
Mhm.
He sounds stronger sometimes in speaking about family than some pastors I know.
Mm.
And
Isn't that sad?
so
Mm.
in a lot of ways it is.
Yeah. Okay. I digress. We need to take a
Well,
break.
we need to let everybody take a breath.
Yeah.
And so we're going to come back and we're going to keep plowing through the Trump files right after this. Hi, I want to tell you about a website that you may have never been to, but you need to visit. It's called facethefearhouse.com. Facethefearhouse.com. Once you get there, you find out about an event that takes place every year here in the Central Florida area called Face the Fear. Now, for some people, you'll look at it and go, oh, it's just a haunted house or it's just a scare event. It's far more than that. It actually is an event where you come and sure, you'll get scared. But the big part of the event is that you'll discover some ways, practical ways, to deal with the fear that you might be facing in your life, whatever it is. We'd love for you to come and join us, see some of the resources that are there on the website, and then if you're in the area, make plans to attend the event. All the details are there. It's facethefearhouse.com, facethefearhouse.com, and the event is called Face the Fear. I look forward to seeing you there. Welcome back to the Trump Files. We're looking at some things that are specific to Donald J. Trump that we're looking at from a Christian perspective and how that kind of fits into who he is, what he's done, what we know about him, some of his positions, some of the things that he said, some of the things that he proved in his first term in office. Let's jump forward a little bit. How about education?
You know, my wife was a high school math teacher for 36 years, and this one's, you know, close to my heart. I believe one of the reasons why we are at the place we're in our nation now is because of the educational system in our nation. I mean, Jeff, you, I don't know if you ever seen the man on the street and some of these news shows where I saw one where a guy was at the beach and he's asking people questions. I mean, people can't name the three branches of government. They had one where they asked who fought in the Civil War, and, and you laugh at some of the answers, but at the same time, I'm just, how can this be that people don't even know simple history? And I believe that, you know, one of the ways that our nation has gone down is because of the takeover of the educational system. And we're watering things down. I was talking with my wife this morning about when she was still teaching, there was like 60% of the kids couldn't do basic, you know, mathematics. And it's just, you know, a shame that we have lowered our standards. And I think one of the big reasons, Jeff, and you can uh, jump in on this if you want to, is what are they called? The DEI, diversity, and uh, what's the E stand for?
Well, you got diversity,
Inclusion,
inclusion, and equity.
equity.
All right.
There we
So
go.
you,
Equity.
so I agree. I mean, I think our standards, you know, we have lowered our standards. I think Trump is a strong educational advocate. I love the fact that um, he is for school choice.
Right.
And he really backed school choice and allowed, in so many ways, schools to become competitive and wanted to push that. And that has worked in the states that have implemented that. Some of the teachers' unions or some groups in the teachers' unions have really hated him over that.
Yeah.
But I think that that's been important. I also like the fact that he did not marginalize Christian schools from some of the opportunities that they had for some of that funding,
Right.
which allows them then to become very competitive as well.
Right.
I like the fact that he is pro-parent and wants the parents to have some involvement in information about their children.
Right.
Where if your child is getting ready to go through a gender change or having some gender issues, you know, or wanting to flip-flop pronouns, that you know, the parents can become aware of that. You don't
Yeah.
hide that from the parents, because again, it's not the school's job to raise the kids.
Yeah.
It's the parents' job to raise the kids.
Right.
And I think Trump approached education from that standpoint. And so I think he brought a pro-parent approach into the educational system. And so I mean, for all of those things, I think that that is a strong way to do it. Again, at the heart of it, if you think of it, government education and government education of children certainly is a part of American culture and has been really for a number of years. You're a product of that. I'm a product of that. But the product that it produces today is radically different than the product that you and I might remember.
Right.
And I think that in some ways Trump did not try to reverse that, but I think he brought back to the forefront some of the things that have changed,
Right.
that have undercut the quality of education from government schools. And again, the disruptor piece comes in. I think that drove people out of their minds.
You know, one thing that's really hurting education today, and I know I'll probably make somebody mad, is the smartphones.
Hmm.
Yeah. I mean, teachers are, there's a big push now to make sure kids don't bring a phone to school with them in some schools and all. And I think a lot of schools would be very happy
Oh, sure.
if that happened, because it's disrupting education.
Of course it is.
Yeah.
Of course it is.
Okay.
And of course, and you remember back in the day when your math teacher would look back at you when you said, "Why do I have to know this?" And he said, "Because you're not going to have a calculator in your pocket or handy
Yeah.
when you're doing math." And
Right.
today we do.
Yeah.
Smartphones, right? And so,
Yeah.
what the tech,
Yeah.
right? I mean, there's just all that's a whole different episode.
I love going into fast food, and if your bill is $18.36, and you give them $18.50, and they don't even know how to make change,
Sure.
and yet they want us to pay them $15 an hour,
Well,
but they don't know simple mathematics. And
this file, I guess, for lack of a better term, we would call social justice.
right.
How do files look on that?
Well, I got to bring up the DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. All right, I got them that time. I think there's so much of that today in everything, and just look at how things are going in our nation, Jeff. I mean, poverty has gone up in the last 4 years. Racial equality. I don't think they've done anything to help the racial. They do everything to ignite the racial situation. Care for the vulnerable has gone down, and I believe Trump sees things through a biblical lens, even though he may not call it that, because of this is the reason, because of the policies that he has put in place when he was president. And I give him a strong mark on social justice, but what we think of social justice and what a lot of other people think of social justice, I don't think they line up.
No, they don't. And I agree. I think, then let me add to it a little bit. I think we come back to this, and it's part of what we talked about a little bit with the education file. I think that one of the things that Trump proved in his first term is that he was not going to work against, but work with Christian organizations and Christian movements as they attempted to do their work, to deal with homelessness, to deal with inner city issues, to deal with violence in inner cities, to try to bring feeding, take care of the homelessness, meet the needs. I think he saw and embraced the value of Christian organizations and ministries
Right.
to do what they were doing, and tried to figure out ways that the government could come alongside and partner with them and help them, as opposed to the other way,
Right.
where the government is waiting for the Christian community to step up and jump in with what it is doing, which is
Right.
really the pattern that has kind of shaped the nation over the past 20, 25 years. Trump kind of took a different approach to that. Again, it goes back to what we said earlier. I want a president that will allow us to do what we're supposed to do. And I think that as Christians, as followers, we're supposed to be able to meet the needs of others. And it's nice if you do get some assistance from at the national level to help you do that instead of working against you, working with you.
Right.
Because I really do believe that the body of Christ is much more equipped, enabled, and called to meet the needs of people
Right.
than the U.S. government.
Right.
And I think for me, in that particular social justice arena, Trump allowed us to move into some social issues in a way that we didn't have the freedom to do for a long time.
Right. Well, let's go on to the economy.
Okay.
And, I give him a real high. I give him an A+ on the economy. But I've got some things, but I want to hear what you got to say.
Well, I mean, when it comes to economy, again, when I open the file, I'm going to take a Christian approach to it, right? Who is going to allow me to do the best job with the money that God entrusts to me?
All right.
So I can be the good steward that I'm supposed to be biblically, and again, keep government out of the mix.
Right.
And so for Trump, one of the things I had that is kind of a negative for Trump, but I've had it for every administration is, our government spends money like drunken sailors.
Oh, they do.
And my gosh, and Trump even being a conservative, I mean, it spent a lot of money. The the thing is, when you look back on it now, it looks like nothing compared to the administration we're through.
Yeah.
So it looks like that he was an ultra conservative there, but he wasn't. I mean, he's very guilty too of running up big price tags, big debits,
Right.
big debts, and so I wish that he could do better from that, and I'm hoping that if he gets a second term, that he will. But on the individual end of it,
Yeah.
on the corporate tax side of it, on the ability to spark an economic growth of a nation, I give him high marks as well.
Oh,
I
yeah.
think that he brought a lot of industry back. He made it made America competitive on a world market and a world stage. For the first time in my lifetime, he spoke up on some of these crazy, bizarre trade practices that administrations that were led by people that that I respect a great deal. How in the world do we negotiate those kind of lame deals?
Right.
And he called them out, and he explained them in ways that no other president had ever done. And for the first time, again, we're back to the disruptor again. People had to give an account for what they did to put us in that situation as a nation, and how America seemed to be paying the bills for everybody,
Right.
and taking the hit for everybody. So I mean, I'm with you. I give him high economic marks, really for some of the reform that he brought to the forefront.
Yeah.
As much as anything else.
Yeah. Well, I look at his 4 years and these last 4 years, and these are the facts. Wages are down, jobs are down, but the illegal immigrants, their job rate is going up exponentially. Prices are up. I mean, you look what a pound of hamburger, what it costs now, a dozen eggs, a loaf of bread. Prices are up. Manufacturing is down. Businesses are leaving again because of the regulations. Gas prices. Oh my goodness. So I give him an A+ on this one.
Yeah.
How about justice and security and public safety?
Yeah, that's a big topic, right? I mean, that's huge. I mean, that runs full gamut from the military to local police. But I think that Donald Trump is very much pro police, pro law enforcement, and I think he's pro military. It drives me absolutely bonkers to hear some of the political rhetoric about what he did or didn't say about military and things like that, because that's been proven to be false. When they try to put a ding in him for some things, again, it's not okay that politicians lie, and yet they do, and we let them get away with it. And
we let them get away.
And our media covers it up, and our media allows them to go unchecked.
Right.
I think that Trump sees the need for a strong military. He needs for police forces to be strong, because there's peace that comes through strength.
Right.
Stability comes through strength, and I think that's the approach that he's kind of taken across the board, which is why so many of the police unions really love the guy, which is why the military love the guy. And which is why some of these folks who hold positions in our military and leadership right now are in serious trouble. Because if he is reelected, they are without jobs.
Yep.
And
That's for sure.
and he is not afraid to say, "You're fired," and
You're
we will
fired.
certainly
Yeah.
do that. So,
Yeah.
what are you?
Well, I'm going to go to one area here. Our border. Our border is in shambles. I think there's some real high estimations that over 20 million people have come across our borders in the last almost four years, which is unbelievable. They wanted this bipartisan bill. They said that Trump didn't want it because it would not help his, election
Sure.
numbers and all. But it was a crazy bill.
Dumb bill.
Yeah, it was
Yeah,
stupid.
dumb
It
bill.
was, we'll let 5,000 a day in.
Yeah.
I mean, just crazy. I watched the news this morning, Jeff, and saw a Venezuelan gang that has taken over an apartment project in Denver, Colorado. I mean, illegal aliens that have come in and taken over an apartment building because it's a sanctuary city. Trump, I agree. Trump supports our police. He's strong on criminal justice, and I give him an A+.
It in a lot of ways, when we look at all these things, there's a case for Christians who are looking for, how do I vote? What do I need to vote on? What do I need to do? The one thing that we didn't hit, that we really need to hit in another episode. Well, a couple things we need to hit in other episodes. We need to talk about the Middle East and Israel, and we need to talk about border. I mean, I think those are great episodes that you can look forward to in the days ahead, because I mean, those are political issues, but also those are biblical issues, and so we can take a look at some of those kinds of things. But for most people, when you said earlier that you take Jesus into the voting booth with you, I always tell people that when you vote for somebody, you're not sending them a Valentine. I don't think I've ever voted for anybody I loved. But at the same token, I vote for people that I believe kind of move me forward in who I am as a follower, and help me be successful in touching and changing the world with the love of Christ, and creating the world that I see that God has called me to impact and change. And so for all those things, you take all this conversation and you wrap it into that kind of big ball of stuff. And see, we told you how to vote, but we didn't even tell you how to vote. You just have to figure it out for yourself.
There you go.
And so we're going to take one more quick break, and then we're going to wrap it up. We're glad you're watching the show this week, but we need to take a break for a minute because, Chris, as we're recording this, the holiday season is coming. And, I always get stuck. What do I need to buy for the people that I love and I care about, and I really want to give them the best quality stuff that I can? I'm not talking about junk. I'm talking about stuff.
Yeah.
What would your suggestion to me be? Where should I shop?
I would go to themasksaint.com, and that's MASKED, themasksaint.com. And there's all kinds of stuff on there. You could get one of my books, you could get The Masked Saint, you could get Harold's Heavenly Christmas, or this is a great one for now, Mr. President. And I've got t-shirts on there. I've even got masks on there. And, there you go. Wouldn't that look good on you?
I think it would.
Maybe it would, but all kinds of things.
We might look better in a mask.
Plus, I just love hearing from people who watch The Clash.
Yeah.
And I'd love to hear from you.
Right,
so go to themasksaint.com.
We just want to take a minute and say thanks for being with us. Man, I feel good. We had a special, man.
Yeah.
Our first special. This is awesome. It was special.
Awesome.
Was it special to you?
It was very special.
Yeah, special to me too. Hopefully it was special to you.
Yeah.
Look forward in the days ahead to the Harris Files. We're going to take an honest and fair look at Kamala Harris and open up the very same topics.
Very good.
And do that again. But until then,
Don't tap out.